Hello, I'm Jesse McAnally.
And I'm Andrew DeWolf.
And I'm Brianna Jones.
And welcome to Musicals with Cheese, a podcast where I try to get Andrew to like musical theater. How are you doing today, Andrew?
I feel fantastic, except for one thing, Jess. And I bet you can't guess. I bet you can't guess what it is.
Did your shadow fall off?
No, I'm not a pirate.
You want to be a pirate?
I want to be a pirate. Because we just watched Peter Pan and there's pirates in it. I want to be Captain Hook. They should make a movie where Captain Hook is the main character and super cool.
Okay. Peter Pan is a musical with music mostly by Moose Charlap, with additional music by Jules Stein. Most of the lyrics were written by Carolyn Lee, with additional lyrics by Betty Condon and Adolph Green, with a book by Sir James M. Barrie based on Sir James M. Barrie's play Peter Pan. It premiered on Broadway on October 20th of 1954 at the Winter Garden Theater, where it ran for a planned limited engagement of 152 performances, where it closed so it could be recorded, streamed live to the TV audiences all over the world on NBC. It won Tony Awards for Best Performance by a Leading Actress in a Musical, Best Performance by a Featured Actor in a Musical, and Best Stage Technician, which I don't think exists as a Tony Award anymore, and it very well should. The basic plot of Peter Pan is Peter and his mischievous fairy sidekick, Tinkerbell, visit the nursery of the Darling children. A magical journey across the stars none of them will forget takes place. In the adventure of a lifetime, the travelers come face to face with a ticking crocodile, and of course, the villainous Captain Hook. Andrew, what do you think of Peter Pan? Do you like my cup, by the way?
Oh, that is a nice cup. Are they Native Americans if they live in a star?
They are native Starians, native Neverlandians.
I've seen the Disney one. I've ridden the ride at Disney World. I think that's actually about it.
You've never seen Robin Williams' Hook?
I think I have, but I literally can't remember it.
Bree, what is your relationship with Peter Pan, if you have any?
I saw the movie when I was a kid, and then I think I was telling you earlier that my high school put on a performance of it, and that wasn't great. But I also don't really remember it because I was in the second grade.
Is any version of Peter Pan really that great? I guess maybe if you're arguing Hook, but
Hook is still not good, as an idea. It's a great movie, but it still has a lot of things, you know?
Peter Pan's been done dirty, you know? There's no version of Peter Pan that's good. The Disney version sucks. This one, I kind of like Hook in this one.
I like all of this one. I think, in my opinion, this is the best version of Peter Pan. When people think Peter Pan, they think of Mary Barton and the NBC live telecast. And then in 1979, Sandy Duncan had a Broadway revival, which was also very well received. And then in the 90s, you had this Kathy Rigby production, which is what you watched.
Yeah.
I loved as a kid, and I saw live and got to meet Kathy Rigby, and it was one of my first theater experiences, and it was really fucking cool.
I think as a show for kids, this is actually really good, because most shows for kids are pretty bad.
It doesn't take that many deviations from the Peter Pan story. It doesn't do anything crazy insane with it. This is the ultimate classic musical in a way where it is actually timeless.
I guess let's just go right to it. There's a little bit of yikes in this one.
But it's
just a tad.
But I feel like Peter Pan as itself has become so ubiquitous that you know about those yikes things in the content of it itself.
How do you remove it? How do you get rid of the Indians? I don't think you can.
The 2014 live telecast with Allison Williams and Christopher Walken try very hard to fix it. They had someone from an Indian tribal nation come in as a consultant. They translated the entirety of the song Uggo Ugg, and they translated it into Ohe, which is actually Indian Native American language. And Peter and the Starcatcher made them just a multicultural, religious sect.
The problem with the whole Indian thing, at this point, it's like a childhood cultural thing. What was that movie, Parasite? The kid was obsessed with Indians. It's like a different thing than Native Americans, but it's entirely racialized, so it sucks. Pirates are just pirates. It's a real thing that actually happened and was an actual culture. But it doesn't fucking matter because it wasn't racialized. You can't do that with Indians, because even calling them Indians is kind of a racist thing.
Literally, there's a song in the Disney movie called What Makes the Red Man Red.
And you guys aren't going to acknowledge that Song of the South exists, but you're just going to, what makes the Red Man Red? That's just fine.
And the thing that makes this musical work is the fact that the Indians are kind of just in name only. They kind of feel like their own fairy tale thing.
They're not actually referencing Native Americans in
It's
any
not
actual
referencing a
way.
history or a culture. The story itself is part of history and culture, but it's not referencing the actual history and
what
culture.
they're actually referencing is the thing that little kids dress up as and pretend to be.
Also another thing about framing of the Indians in here. They are not framed as evil, mean people or idiots or dumb. They are
Yeah.
tacticians, they are smart, they are allies.
It's not like a spaghetti western where the Indians are like savages. It's difficult to overlook a song called, what was it, Ugga Wug? Or it's just like, okay, well, that's kind of racist because you're just saying that their language is basically just made up sounds.
Let's talk a little bit more about the characterization a bit, especially of Peter Pan, because Peter Pan, I feel like our culture is co-opted into the cool kid. In the book, Peter Pan, when the Lost Boys get older, because Peter Pan is the only one that doesn't grow up, he either takes them out and kills them because they got too old, or they escape Peter Pan and become pirates. It's interesting because Peter Pan is a sociopath. Also actively thinks he's the greatest guy in the world, and it's creepy.
He's an actual little kid, and little kids don't care about other people.
Let's talk about all 3 acts, because this is a very rare 3-act musical. Peter comes in, invades this house to get his shadow back, and just kidnaps 3 children.
Don't forget, man, there's that big dog. They have a furry that takes care of their children. I liked the whole beginning part, except for when they find the shadow. I always thought that was weird. How does the mom find the shadow and is just like, fine? Peter Pan's entire goal is to bring a girl back to Neverland to be his mom.
Everyone wants Wendy to be their mom. The pirates want Wendy to be their mom. Bree, will you be our mothers and knit us pockets and tell us stories?
Yes, boys.
Act 1 ends with the pretty cool effect of Peter flying all over the place. I think that looks really good.
The flying looks fantastic. I like when every one of them is flying and like the only one that's really doing anything is the lead, and the other ones are just kind of like,
wow. Where she's like flipping the fuck around and bouncing off shit. So Act 2 is mostly about the pirates and the boys wanting Wendy as a mother. But I want to talk about the scene where Tinkerbell convinces the Lost Boys to murder Wendy out of the sky. One of them thinks they've done it, and then Peter, as soon as he hears that Wendy's dies, tries to murder one of the Lost Boys.
If you don't have parents, you want to murder. We've all seen Annie. Doesn't even have pupils in her eyes. There is no soul there. Why the fuck did they listen to this little asshole fairy?
Do you believe in fairies, Andrew?
I don't believe in fairies. I actually do believe in fairies, but I like to murder them, so I say that as often as I can.
What do you think of the Lost Boys in this musical?
I don't think that they're very funny, and I
No.
don't particularly remember any of them that well.
Soiled slightly soiled.
Pissing and shitting yourself is not a character trait. I like Hook in this a lot. He is the goofy version of Hook, which is fine. I don't hate the goofy version of Hook. I think that he is fun and menacing enough that he actually has an impact. Yeah.
And this continues the trait of having the father character also play Hook. The only version that's ever not done that is the 2014 Christopher Walken version. Christopher Walken couldn't be fucked. Act 3. This is where they're like all on the pirate ship and they like try to kill the Lost Boys.
I really like pirates. You know, I think that they're cool. I have some fun with them. I think that Captain Hook is a poor representation of a pirate captain. I am coming out as a pirate, actually. I am a pirate.
I'm proud of you for finally saying
Out of the crow's nest.
I think this is actually the best scenes in the show. It's on the pirate ship. And I think the actual fight scene between Pan and Hook is pretty well done.
There's some like fun fight stuff. I think it's a little goofy.
We didn't talk about the "Do you believe in fairy" scene where they turn to you, Andrew, and ask.
Oh, yeah.
My favorite is the live productions where they don't have an audience, so it's just like, yes, keep clapping. Dead silence. Yes, keep it going. Can we talk a bit about how they bring home all the Lost Boys and just assume that their parents are gonna fucking adopt them?
And then they do?
Yeah. No, fucking get out in the streets. Go to the workhouses.
That's what we have workhouses for.
Let's talk about the epilogue of this musical, which I think is super fucked up. Peter comes back thinking it's been like a week, but it's been like 60 years, and he comes across an old lady, Wendy. It's like, oh no, you grew up without me. And she's like, I have a granddaughter. And he's like, I'm going to take this bitch instead.
I think that this is the best scenes because it shows the true Peter Pan.
Like, he does not give a fuck about Wendy as a person. He gives a fuck about that mother figure in his life and only that.
He just wants his mommy.
But you know who definitely doesn't watch porn? The New York theater critics! We're about to go into our next favorite segment. It's time for Breeviews, where we get to compare our opinions with those of the New York theater critics.
It's time for Breeviews.
The New York Times critic Walter Kerr says of the 1979 production, Peter Pan, for all that Mary Martin and television were able to make of it, was never exactly a landmark musical in Broadway history. It was a patch job, be nice, and call it a patchwork quilt. But there is trouble. In the long second act of 3, it's simply this. Barry's plotting, my God, am I going to defend the plotting of Peter Pan, and the little psychological contretemps, I thought it was contretemps, that developed between Peter and Wendy have been ditched or mentioned cursorily and tossed away. Tossed aside in favor of production numbers created specifically for the other performers nearly 25 years ago. I found myself gradually neutralized, except in mid-flight.
Is this production a particularly bad version of it? Or
no,
is
it was the
kind of
iconic
lame?
one of the 70s. It's basically the same production.
Here's a Mel Gussow in 1990 production. Peter Pan is the musical that never grew up. It is locked in a time warp in which children can dream about breaking loose from their families and searching for lofty adventure, and adults can feel nostalgic about their lost dreams of childhood. When Peter Pan persuades Wendy's and her brothers to fly with him into the world of the Lost Boys in a Jerome Robbins aerial ballet, children in the audience may feel a similar surge to the open windows of experience. I wouldn't talk about children feeling a surge towards open windows, but
My thoughts exactly.
New York Times critic Peter Marks says of the 1998 revival, it was during the Uggawug Indian number that the little girl in the rainbow-colored cardigan turned and flashed me an A-OK sign, so I knew she was a white supremacist. I might have been quick to suspect her as an audience plant by the Peter Pan public relations people, except she was my own daughter. My pleasure was observing their pleasure. For a parent, there are few experiences more exhilarating. And of course, it took me back 100 years or so to the first time I saw Peter Pan. It was the grainy television version starring Mary Martin. And how wowed I was, not by a boy who could fly, but by one who had to have his shadow sewn on.
This is the worst review we've ever had.
does he know he's supposed to be reviewing the show that he's watching?
It's like he had nothing to say, so he just word vomited onto the paper and turned it in.
You'll never believe what my 5-year-old just said. They turned to me and they said, racism is only age old, and in the past we didn't used to have it. We can get rid of it again. My 5-year-old said this. My 5-year-old daughter just came out as Albert Einstein. I'm so proud. I'm so proud.
I say we just end it there.
That's it. That's it.
That's it. This was a great show.
This is the worst review I think we've ever read. We're just gonna leave. We're done.
Let's talk about I've Got a Crow.
Is this the Peter Pan song where he's kind of just singing about how great he is?
Yes, it is that. 2 sets of composers. So you've got the one set that wrote a majority of it. Then you got the super famous one of Jules Stein and Compton and Green, who wrote a bunch of other songs that are mixed in there.
I think this I've Got a Crow song is okay. I'm not like super impressed by it.
I don't like I Got a Crow. It's pointless, and it should be in the quote-unquote I Want song section, and it isn't. It is a song about how great I am.
I think it is an I Want song. Peter Pan wants himself so badly.
That was done by Charlap and Lee, and they did a majority of these. And I don't much like the songs that they did. But now we're going to go on to another song called Never Never Land. And it's beautiful, it's poetic, like melodically, it is gorgeous. It is kind of the one recurring theme through it. It ends the show
This particular song is pretty good. I just don't know if it has much like story drive to it, like at all.
We as human beings that know the story of Peter Pan back and forth just because of a cultural thing. We don't need that. We know what Neverland is. Neverland is this fantasy world, and you kind of want to build it up as an idea so that when you get there in Act 2, it kind of can surpass your expectations. And I think this is a beautiful way to do that. I really like Hook's Tango.
All of the stuff where Hook calls up his band is hilarious. Like the pirates are just always on the ready to play a song for him. The joke keeps getting funnier though, because the pirates are just ready to play music. Like,
it is hilarious. Hook's Tango and the Tarantella are both not as good as Hook's Waltz in Act 3.
Hook's Waltz is the climax of the joke. The first two are kind of like, hey, we're setting it up, but it's gonna be big.
I want to talk about Wendy for a minute. It works in a way where you kind of understand the reason why people want Wendy around and their goals for her. They describe the specific things they want from Wendy, which is we want her to tell us stories, make us pockets, and be nice to us and help us to guide us. Charlap and Lee wrote I Won't Grow Up.
I've never heard of it.
It is so prevalent outside of this musical that I heard it like 45 times before I even saw this musical. And I saw this musical when I was very young. It's the only one that has had a life outside of this and also kind of does a good league of storytelling effort for Peter Pan. It is an important song.
All right, can we talk about fucking Uggawug now?
Yes, we can talk about Uggawug.
I like all the drum stuff. It's cool.
That was added for the 90s production. So we're going to talk about this.
The Lost Boys and the Indians have a treaty. They're going to help fight the pirates.
Basically like, yeah, we're friends now song.
I honestly don't have any real opinion on the Uggawug thing.
The Uggawug isn't a thing, though.
Other than like, don't Uggawug? What? Don't do that.
Don't Uggawug. In the more recent Christopher Walken production, they do change it up a bit to be a little more.
I'm interested to see what the lyrics they came up with for this song mean.
That is a good point and something I have not even thought about. Can I just read to you what the consultant had to say about Uggawug? Because I feel like that's worth bringing up. I'll tell you exactly what I helped address. There were 3 things that I was able to bring to the table to help reconstitute the piece. The first thing is the opening rhythm. There's a very clear kolengo that's done with the strings in the very opening that sounds drum-like, but also sounds stick-like, which is actually accurate to the northeastern part of the country with Indians. We adjusted the accents of these constant 8th note beats so it sounded more like Iroquois smoke dance rather than the stereotypical 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4, you know, that kind of thing. So we adjusted the opening rhythm so it sounded more authentic. It's a small cleanup. Trick is, to be honest with you, most Americans aren't going to know the difference, but at least we do. Intellectually we know and musically we know. There was a small adjustment. It still sounds a little stereotypical. That can't go away because we are also preserving the integrity of the original compositions, and those original compositions were very stereotypical. But they weren't just stereotypical about Indians. They're stereotypical about all things they address within Peter Pan. That's musical theater. That's something that we accept about musical theater. Musical theater thrives on stereotypes and all that. That's what he went into the musical trying to do with Uggawug and how they changed it from being a little less racist.
Boy, we've really done it here. We've solved racism yet again.
Okay,
we just keep doing it.
Every week we just keep on, fixing racism.
So you want to talk about what? Distant Melody? Act 2 closer, and it's not the end of the show? No, that's a new one.
For one, it recharacterizes Peter Pan as someone that has a lot of baggage from his past. He runs away as an infant. Tinkerbell finds him, takes him to Neverland. Then he comes back wanting to see his parents again, and they had a second child, and he says they replaced him.
So he's literally a selfish idiot?
That characterizes this song where he's like nostalgic for his actual mother and remembers his actual mother.
So really the villain is Tinkerbell. But Tinkerbell like actually kind of kidnaps a baby.
It's even weirder in the movie Hook, where she's played by Julia Roberts, and she's adult Julia Roberts kidnapping infant Peter Pan and then falls in love with infant Peter Pan.
I don't mind the song that much. I kind of question the placement of it a little bit. I kind of imagine this would be like the Act 1 closer in a traditional show. Anyone other than like a small child watching, you're like, wait, his parents probably didn't replace him. He was in Neverland. They probably thought he died.
I would be very interested in an adaptation of Peter Pan actually addressing his relationship with his brother.
I mean, he probably went back and killed his brother at some point.
You replaced me! Ah! Stab him with a fucking dagger in the night. The final song we gotta talk about is Captain Hook's Waltz, which is the only Captain Hook song written by Comden and Green and Jewel Stein, and it is the best Captain Hook song.
It's like actually a pretty good one.
It's
like
great. It just keeps
Captain Hook.
Captain Hook.
It kind of gets you like really pumped up about Captain Hook.
It really
like
does.
right before he dies, which kind of stinks. We're really gonna let Peter Pan win after we just got that song about Captain Hook?
About how fucking awesome he. That's the last like non-reprise of the musical. This is the most fun song in the show, the best Captain Hook number, and Captain Hook has a lot of fun numbers. I think we've made it to the end, which means, Andrew, what is your overall thoughts on Peter Pan and your cheese rating?
It's okay. If you have like a little kid, they'll probably enjoy it more than you will. If you have a little girl in a rainbow cardigan, I mean, I guess they're going to really enjoy it. There's parts of it that I did really like, namely anytime Captain Hook was on screen. Act 3 is where it really gets good. I feel like Act 1 and 2 are kind of a drag for most of it. I actually just found out from Google searching here, there is a small mouse named Cheese in the Disney franchise Tinkerbell. So I'm gonna give it that. That's my cheese rating, is this mouse named Cheese.
Bree, what was your overall rating of our discussion and your cheese rating?
I thought this was a fantastic discussion. We ripped apart that damn terrible review. We conquered racism once again.
We
boys.
fixed racism.
Pounding racism into the dirt.
I'm going to give that terrible review the worst rated cheese, which is, I think it's Casu Marzu. I think it translates to rotten cheese. That's going to be my cheese rating this week, mainly for that awful review.
Do you know what my cheese rating is? Because I do like this show quite a bit, and it was a nostalgic piece of my childhood. But it hasn't aged great. It's got some things. Everything's got things, and it's not perfect. And it was interesting to learn who wrote what songs. But my cheese rating is Elvis grilled cheese sandwich, which is grilled cheese with bananas, bacon, cheese, and peanut butter. And I'm choosing Peter Pan peanut butter. All right, guys, do we have anything else left to say before we wrap this up on this beautiful Thanksgiving morning?
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
We have unsolved racism.
Oh no, racism's back. Oh, get away. All right, guys. We'll see you next time
Boy.
on Musicals with Cheese. Little girl in a cardigan showing me the outside, and that little girl was my daughter. Would you believe that? My pleasure was watching her pleasure.
God.